Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of CarnivorousGrama Speaks. I'm so super excited here tonight to be here with Adrian. Hey, Adrian.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so thankful that you decided to take me up on my offer to come on Women of Wisdom Speak. And before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and just read my scripture that I have for this series. And it is Proverbs 14:1. And it says, "The wise woman builds her house, but the foolish one tears it down with her own hands." And I love that scripture. I always read it for this show because I really think about and appreciate the fact that we are women making wise choices for our bodies, making wise choices for our families. And, it's kind of when you know better, you do better type of a thing. And we learned about carnivore and learned about the proper human diet and decided to implement that. And it's absolutely fantastic. So, welcome, Adrian. I want you to go ahead and take a moment and introduce yourself.
My name is Adrian, and I am a carnivore woman, a mother of four. I'm a stay-at-home mom. My hobby is talking to you guys about all the things that I've tried and making lifestyle changes that can change so many different things. My background is being overweight my whole life. There's never been a time since I was even a little baby where I wasn't struggling with this. And I've tried everything from going on national TV, The Biggest Loser, to just marathon running, half marathon running, and restricting my calories, eating balanced diets, all the diets. I've tried gastric bypass. And in the end, I just ended up getting more and more and more ill and more and more and more tired and just continuing to struggle until I got so ill that someone said, "You're going to feel better if you cut the inflammatory foods," which is plants for some people. And so that's how I ended up here, and that's my background.
That is awesome. You just summed it all up in one little ball there.
I can go into
So,
detail and whatever you
yeah,
want
let's
me
talk a
to.
little bit about like your growing up. Like, what was your experience like? How was it with food, with your family, and your growing up time?
Before I say about all the tough things, I just want to say that my dad is my light through all of this, and I'm so grateful that God gave me him as a father, and that there is not a time in my history where I look back and go, he didn't do a good enough job. So when I go into this, I don't ever want to give the wrong impression. So my dad and my mom had me at about 21 years old, and they both had, like, my dad had lost his dad, and my mom just, her parents really struggled. And they were friends. My grandparents were friends. So, and there was a lot of alcohol involved with the grandparents and my parents. So they were young, and my mom, she just had a tough time having three kids by the age of 22, and so she just decided to leave us with my dad. So my dad was a single guy raising us so young, and so he moved in with his mom, who really struggled with alcohol. So the life was a little bit tumultuous. Is that how you say it? It was a little bit troubling because he was working around the clock to support my family, and we were left with a lot of babysitters. And it's hard to pay for babysitters when you're just a single guy and you're so young. And so we would have a lot of different babysitters. And now that I've been trying to find babysitters for my own kids, sometimes it's difficult to find just that loving person. So growing up was really tough. And then because we were low income, we ate a lot of processed foods. It was every single meal, the base of the meal was bread, potatoes, or noodles, every single meal. And then there would maybe be a can of vegetables and maybe some hamburger mixed in with it. So we'd eat a lot of, like, hot dish, as we call it here in Minnesota. So it was a lot of processed foods, and I found them highly addictive. And what makes me really sad is remembering as a child that I was never full. I would eat, and then because I was overweight from just a tiny baby, I've always been overweight. they were constantly trying to restrict me. So there was already what people don't realize when they talk to their kids who are overweight and they say, "Oh, you got to watch what you eat," is you're telling your child that they don't maybe deserve to eat like everybody else. They don't deserve to be full, and that what they're eating for them is wrong. And that just really builds a very sad relationship with food. And honestly, a sad relationship with yourself that, well, I'm not allowed to fill this human need of mine because if I do, that makes me bad. So I've been on a diet my whole life. Um, we my dad remarried when I was 10 and we built a home. And so we moved from kind of a condemned little 150-year-old house with a wet basement to a brand new house. And as I look back with some of my illness things, that's when I stopped having as bad of weight issues. But I'm still eating all these
Mm.
processed foods, guys. But I'm playing sports and I'm kind of slimming down a little bit. And that's what I did through high school. Because I had this thing in me that I was less than everybody else, I was constantly busy trying to prove to myself and to other people that I was as worthy as they were. So I wanted to lead everything and I wanted to succeed in everything. So I was in band and choir, drama, yearbook, National Honor Society, cross country skiing, soccer. For a while, I was in basketball, golf, and sometimes track and field. And I would just do it all from sunup to sundown. And then I also joined like the Duluth Superior Youth Symphony Orchestra. So I'd add other things in, and I worked to pay for my gas. So I went nonstop, filling every single minute of my life. And that was fine. In high school, I was maybe about between 160 and 170, 165, 170. Back then, that was considered big. It's different today, but back then I was one of the biggest. I was always in my schools one of the biggest people. So when
How
I went
tall are you, Adrian?
5'4",
Okay. Yeah.
sometimes 5'3",
You-
and my feet range from size 8 to size 10, depending on my weight and my pregnancy status.
Wow.
So I go to college and I move into the moldy old dorms and I immediately I think I gained 60 pounds. I went from like 165 to 125 in my first year of college. What had changed? Moldy dorms, cafeteria food, no more exercising. The exercise was a lot less. And I was just sitting there studying because I went to St. Olaf College, which is a very studious, busy work college. I went home for the summer. My stepmom and I went on Atkins. I lost, I don't know, 30 or 40 pounds. It went really well. But then I transferred to a party school, the University of North Dakota, very good school. And I gained all that back plus more. And then I was just really sad about it. And I just felt like a failure. And I also was very lonely. And I was convinced that I was unlovable. And I've always kind of seeked that companion. I always wanted that companion. And, being in that body, I felt like there's no way anybody's going to love me. And I was convinced too, I would never get married. I'd never have kids. So then I see The Biggest Loser. And I had never even watched the show before, but my stepmom and I joked that we were going to go on it. And I applied and I actually got on it.
That's so amazing. I just want to pause there because I'm thinking about my daughters. And they both were like, I'm going to go on The Biggest Loser. And they should have just tried out, I guess.
Yeah. I don't know how many people auditioned, but I want to say I remember it was like 250,000.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And we can go into how The Biggest Loser doesn't work, but I met the producers and they had very good intentions of inspiring America. And when you look at the methods that we used, it was what our doctors tell us to do to this day. So nothing they did was like mean or barbaric. I mean, they put some personalities on there to make it
Yes.
fun. And then the filming was really long and you were sequestered from your family. So there were things that were really tough about filming and not optimal. There were resources that could have been better. But overall, they had this mission of inspiring America. And they told us they watched
really
every single audition that was sent to them. They watched all of them. And so I think that's a testament to that they did care.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you want me to go into how the biggest loser went, or if we
So
want to talk about something
before
else.
we go on into that, I just really want to appreciate your father, um, because that's a tough thing for young dads.
Mhm.
And your dad is a champion.
100%. Can I skip ahead to how his life went? So
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
this
yeah. Feel free.
21-year-old man working 24 hours a day at a local rental store. And he's got these two daughters all to himself. I have another sister, but she's a half sister, so she was with my mom. So two girls all to himself. His parental figure he has left is struggling with the disease of alcoholism. And life is just really tough. And he ends up meeting my stepmom, and together they ended up buying that rental store. And my dad and my stepmom now own it. He is the American
Mhm.
dream,
Yeah,
and he really just put his head down. He's never been a poor me guy in his whole life. He's just gratitude and continue on and give it to God.
yeah, that's amazing. I'm very proud of your dad.
Me too.
He's done a fantastic job, and I love the disclaimer that you made at the beginning, because I just know how hard it is for young men, particularly when they're 20 years old. They have different life goals. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yes. He wanted to be racing trucks. That's what he
Mhm.
wanted to do. But instead, he
Yeah,
was raising two girls.
that's pretty awesome. Very, very. That's a great feel good story. I feel good listening to that. So, and happy that that it turned out great for him, and that he's having success in his life. So that's fantastic. You mentioned here that you have been dealing with some issues with moldiness. You said that a couple of times. So I just wondered if you could drill in a little bit into what's going on with that, with the moldy thing.
I could cry talking about this because I feel like it's ruined our life. But I want to raise awareness to something that people just don't know about. So, throughout time, I've always struggled with my weight despite trying 10 times harder than anybody around me, honestly. Well, now we all have to try hard, it seems, because 7 out of 10 people are overweight or obese. But that wasn't how it always has been through my life. And so I've always had to work to not be obese. And as I look back, my periods where I was actually feeling better, I was in buildings that weren't moldy. And then, like when I got married, we bought a 100-year-old house, and it had a
Mm,
wet basement. And we were sick the whole time we were in there. And
wow.
I would go in with these symptoms. I'd say, I'm so tired. I'm struggling to get pregnant. I have my babies. I have no milk. I'm always being told it's in my head and it's my fault and I didn't try hard enough. And they would just run vague labs and just constantly tell me everything was fine and that that's just how it is, and that I just needed to just work harder and put my head down, maybe get more rest, maybe stop being so stressed out. It was constantly like this self-blame thing. And it wasn't until my dad actually went no grains, no sugar, and
Mm,
with Vinny, and Vinny's co-host had autoimmune conditions, and she went carnivore, and that's how my dad is the one that told me I had to go carnivore. I think he told me like once a
oh,
week for 6 months. I was convinced I needed green beans because they're full of nutrition. Uh,
right.
and so I went carnivore and I started feeling better, but then I took a turn and I was just as bad as ever. And
Oh,
that's when I ran into Judy Cho. And
okay.
she's the one who she started sharing stories of other people. And I was like, that's exactly me. That is exactly me. I struggle to lose weight. I'm cold all the time. My hair is falling out and brittle. I can't sleep. My arms and legs go numb. I've got brain fog. I'm having terror and panic attacks. I'm having a difficult time driving because I'm getting lethargic every time I sit in a car. I'm
Wow.
getting sick every time I eat. I'm having food reactions constantly. It doesn't seem to matter what I cut, there's always a food reaction. I'm allergic to everything. The list, but my whole body is in pain. I wake up so stiff every morning, I can barely get out of bed.
Oh,
The
wow.
list goes on and on and on. And so she gave the symptoms, and I was like, that's exactly my life. And so I went through the testing and it came back. I mean, I think you need 3 out of 10 to be positive for SIRS. And I was like 9 out of 10 of the tests were positive for SIRS. And so this has been.
And what is SIRS? Can you just give us a brief, what does that stand for?
If you ask different people, they're going to give you a different answer, but here's what I've come up with. It's chronic inflammation. So it's called chronic inflammatory response syndrome. But basically, pretty much, I think every disease, including obesity, potentially stems to inflammation inside of our body. And people are going to say different things of how you got that inflammation and why your body can't figure out how to turn it off. But you get inflamed and your body gets so inflamed that it no longer is reacting appropriately, like your immune system's down. And instead of attacking viruses, bacteria, toxins, and eliminating them, you start attacking yourself. And so you start having autoimmune conditions. So I had tested positive for Hashimoto's, adrenal dysfunction level 3, I think it was. And I have lichen sclerosis. Lichen sclerosis, it's a skin condition where your body starts attacking its own skin. And the list goes on and on and on. I think had I gone in, they maybe potentially could have, because my arms and legs and my stomach and sometimes my neck were going numb, potentially I could have been misdiagnosed with MS. Some people say fibromyalgia is sometimes misdiagnosed and is this. But anyway, it stems down to inflammation. And how did this happen to me? Well, number one, I think all the moldy building exposure I had kind of added a little bit more and a little bit more. Then I slipped on the ice and I had a terrible head injury where I hit my head, the back of my head so hard, I left my body and then came back in. I was in a very emotionally, psychologically, and financially abusive marriage for a while. And that for 9 years, and that causes you inflammation inside, the nonstop stress of the abuse. It just adds up. My final nail on the coffin, that's not the right word. Final flower petal.
Final straw.
The final straw was the bad virus that we're not allowed to say the name of. And that was the final toxin that tipped me over and said, you can't function anymore. And as a stay-at-home mom, I have to function. And so there's different ways to go about this. I'm starting with the shoemaker protocol, which is clean up your environment. Like our home had water damage in it. So we're looking for a non-water damaged place to live. So if you could all say a prayer for us, that'd be amazing because my kids are affected as well. And then the next thing would be, once our immune system's discombobulated like this, you have a hard time pulling out just toxins we deal with every day. Like I don't walk down the laundry aisle at the grocery store. It makes me sick.
Wow.
I have to be careful what buildings I go into. Just different things that used to not bother me now. And so we got to empty that bucket out, pull that stuff out. And then there's more to the protocol, but I'm looking into different things because I really want to not just avoid, I want to become resilient,
Exactly. Yeah, that's fascinating. I have heard of SIRS before, but I could probably need to go just do a little bit of study up on it and see what those, because it's a lot of that sounds kind of familiar. Of course, I'm a little bit older, so they'll say, well, these are all menopause symptoms or, things like that. So, but a lot of that sounds very familiar. So I might take a look at that and see. I haven't watched too much of Judy Cho's stuff, but I know she definitely has information on that.
She's amazing. And yeah, she's amazing.
Awesome. So a couple comments came in. A lot of people are here. So hey, you guys, we really appreciate you coming in. First of all, I want to say, hey, Sharon, thank you so much for becoming a new member of the channel. I really appreciate that. And very happy and thankful to have you as a member. Keto Simple is here from your channel. What's his name? I can't remember.
Dustin.
Hey, Dustin. So yeah, I of course have seen him around, and also, Ellie is here. So Ellie, she says she loves you, and she used to also think she was not worthy of love, and is so blessed to have husband and children today. So that is, I mean, I think
Mhm.
a lot of us feel that way sometimes, like unworthy. And a
Mhm.
lot of our, childhood trauma causes us to feel that way. And, the whole thing about the imposter syndrome.
Mhm.
Have you heard of that?
Yes.
So, yeah, I think a lot of us deal with that because of that feeling of unworthiness. And so, you're definitely worthy of love. And then she also said, thank you to Adrian's dad. You raised an amazing woman. So, yep, I agree with that. And then Simpson said, I remember the blaming when I couldn't produce milk when attempting to breastfeed. I was a vegan vegetarian, thought I was eating healthy, but I wasn't nourished enough to feed my babies.
I want to speak to this no milk thing because it's to this day, you can go to the best um, lactation consultants in the world and they will still say you just didn't try hard enough and you're too stressed. And the sad part is that I think there's two things. Number one, we are not forming our breast tissue properly, maybe because of the toxins, maybe because of like I was put on birth control at like 11 because I was told that my cycles were irregular and that was going to help. And then number two is with all these autoimmune conditions, our body it's struggling. And so the last thing it wants to do is produce milk. And so that could be PCOS, insulin resistance, which are kind of the same, autoimmune conditions, thyroid conditions, hormone conditions, so many different things. And these are rampant in our society. And so all these women are being told, well, it's plenty. You have plenty of milk. And our babies just cry day and night. And so it's not enough because a full baby typically sleeps.
Absolutely. And it's so concerning, what's happening with the kids and the food. Like the food that the kids are eating are destroying their bodies,
Mm.
boys and girls.
Yes.
And we have all this. I mean, we just look around, right? If I think about when I was back in elementary school, and I'm not that old. I'm like 58. But when I was back in elementary school, it's very uncommon to see overweight children
Mhm.
in school. And now, if you look around, you see like most of the kids are, yeah, they're inflamed. Their
Mhm.
little bodies are inflamed, and it's because of the food that they're eating. And it's not even food, right? It's like just a list of chemicals. Just a
Mhm.
list of chemicals is what the kids are getting, and it's destroying their mitochondria. We expect them to be
Mhm.
at their best when we can't even be at our best on those processed foods. We
Mhm.
cannot even be at our best. And then you add on the fact that you have these environmental issues, which is what you're talking about,
Mhm.
that impact us negatively. I mean, that's on top of the food. It's just the food is one big, huge thing,
Mhm.
and so
It's
it's
coming at
very
us from all
concerning.
sides.
It is very, very concerning. Well, thanks for sharing about that chronic inflammatory response syndrome. I'll definitely do a little bit more research on that because, you know, what you were saying was the carnivore did amazing, but then there was this other thing that was going on in the background. So are you doing better now? Like are you still on carnivore, or what are you kind of doing there?
Definitely still carnivore. What I've so I don't think this is like really controversial, and I don't think people are going to agree if they haven't experienced it themselves typically. And I know people who are just like, this absolutely works for me. And if you just do it harder, it will work for you too. Like I was just talking to a friend, I was telling her how I got really sick on lion diet. I
Me
gained
too.
my thyroid and my hormones took a dive 35 days in, and I gained 14 pounds. And her response was, you should try to do it for like 9 to 12 months. Like,
Oh,
no, 35 days was too much for me. Like, it's not carnivore harder when there's underlying issues. Now, can it help with insulin resistance? I think it can lessen the symptoms. Does it heal it? I don't know. Maybe fasting can heal it. But the thing is I see people go right back. If I were to go back and eat foods that raise my insulin's going to raise again. And so I feel better because I'm not agitating it. But if I were cured, I could go back to eating carbohydrates without getting sick. So I know that's really controversial, but
I agree. I mean, I totally agree with that. I mean, I think it's probably more of in remission
it's
or
a
maybe
treatment.
even a reduction, right? Maybe
Mhm.
not even a complete elimination. And maybe it takes longer. I've only been on carnivore for 19 months, almost 20 months now. And so I feel like certain things take much longer. If you think about the length of time that you've been dealing with the issue, the length of time that you've been eating the bad food, the length of time that you've lived in bad homes and, had dealt with moldiness or all the different things, the environmental issues, as compared to the length of time, like for me, 19 months, it's a drop in the bucket compared to the time that my body has had to get into this condition. So I imagine that it's going to take longer. And then also again, you think about things, disease states like diabetes or something like that, where you have an insulin response issue, too much insulin, or not enough insulin, zero insulin, or whatever the case may be, then if you go back to eating what you ate before, your body's going to have the same response as it had before. So it's not cured per se.
Yeah.
I agree with you on that. I think it's more like you can put it into remission, but if you go back, if you do what you always did, you're going to get what you always got. So
Since having gastric bypass, about 6 months after gastric bypass, started the chronic hypoglycemia. And so for 10 years, I cut more and more and more and more and more to try to find out what was causing this hypoglycemia. I cut sugar immediately. I cut grains immediately. I've pretty much been sugar-free, grain-free for 10 years, and I was still getting hypoglycemia. And the hypoglycemia did not go into remission or dormant until carnivore, which is a reason why I have to stay with this.
okay.
I also choose to stay with this. I 100% think that this is the most primal, natural, least inflammatory diet and the most nourishing. So even if it didn't cure me, and I also want to talk about how I don't necessarily feel that it's the reason I lost weight either. And I can go into that too, which is also controversial.
I would love to hear. Yeah.
So despite it not being the ticket for those two things, I choose to stay here because I get to be full, I get to be nourished, and it's the most natural diet and the least inflammatory diet available to us. So I choose to stay here, and I can't imagine going back to eating cookies, which I haven't done in like 10 years, but I just can't. I also can't imagine being like, oh, green beans.
On a carnivore diet, like what would be your length of time?
I started the transition November of 2022, and I officially got rid of the green beans January 2023. So we're in the 2-year range. And yeah. So I realize I'm still a baby carnivore, and more healing. I think the less inflamed our gut is, the more chance it has to heal itself. And maybe that just takes a long time. I think that's absolutely a possibility.
Me too. I agree. Absolutely do. So you said that you had hypoglycemia. And can you tell us a little bit more about what would happen with your hypoglycemia that you were dealing with?
So I'm eating lettuce, I'm eating spinach, I'm eating green beans. For a while, I was having pretty much all the vegetables except no potatoes, no carrots, none of the higher glycemic ones, or whatever you call it, the higher carbohydrated ones. And it wouldn't necessarily happen right after I ate them, but within 3 days, my blood sugar would drop. And so my blood sugar, and every morning I woke up and you could feel it under your skin, like that you were having blood sugar issues and it could drop at any moment. So it's like a constant state of stress. And then it would have nothing to do with eating. I would, let's say, take my 2-year-old to a grocery store, and that's stressful. And the stress would cause my blood sugar to drop. And going to the gym would cause any little piece of stress, which I didn't actually feel in my heart was stressful, but I guess my body couldn't handle any stress or my blood sugar would drop. It was just so inflamed and stressed out on its own. Another good example, every single birthday party I had since gastric bypass, my blood sugar dropped in the middle of the party. So I remember one time I took my kids to the Mall of America. My blood sugar dropped in the middle of the Mall of America with a baby and 2 children in early elementary school. So this was chronic and it was debilitating and it was unexplainable to me. And I went to endocrinologists, I went to doctors, I went back to my surgeon. I went everywhere I could to find an answer to how to put an end to this and why is this happening? And nobody had answers, except they told me to continue to eat sugar to keep my blood sugar up, which I learned very quickly was a horrible answer, because I would eat it. Let's say I ate a little bit of sugar, my blood sugar would come up and then it would dive even worse. So the advice I was getting was awful. And to this day, I just wonder if this is a version of insulin resistance. Despite my insulin number coming back fine, my blood sugar coming back fine, I am not responding appropriately to insulin, very similar to a diabetic. I cannot eat those foods without getting sick. And so if anybody out there has any ideas of how I could prove that to my doctor, I would love to. But anyway.
Wow, that is fascinating. So when your blood sugar drop, you have to eat something, right?
Yeah,
and so what they tell you to do is you need to. I know they say take a glucose pill or drink some juice.
Yeah,
that's a terrible idea to me, but they tell people to drink juice, like orange juice, which is like definitely a shot of sugar. But it doesn't. Yeah.
The best thing I found is to eat peanut butter, because it has that touch of sugar and it has some protein and a whole bunch of fat. The other great thing I found was cheese. Now, that's not what you crave at all. You're like, give me a piece of bread right now. I'm going to die. Give me some cake, ice cream, something. Another good one, though, would be yogurt, maybe cottage cheese. Those would be, that's what I found towards the end to be the best. Now, I don't eat hardly any of those foods anymore. I've cut dairy because it causes me so much inflammation. And I've stopped with the peanuts because they're highly inflammatory for people with autoimmune conditions. And what else did I say? Lots of dairy and nuts. Yeah, so if you're out there struggling, those are the things I'd lean towards. Cheese, cottage cheese, yogurt, and peanut butter.
Wow.
Or just go carnivore.
Yeah, just go carnivore. So Sharon's here, and I'm going to bring up her comment because this is very welcome, Sharon. I'm an infant in this carnivore at day 78.
That's
Seems
a long
like the
time.
candy bar payday at the checkout counters are just waiting for me. So far, I haven't given. Don't give in, Sharon.
Don't do it.
So I don't know
Make
if your
it
philosophy
90.
is the same as mine, Adrian, but my philosophy about addiction is that the only cure for addiction is abstinence. So as soon as you eat the payday, you're going to want to eat another payday.
Yeah, I've had a little bit of a transition there too, in a way, sort of. I thought that if I just continued to restrict addictive food, that I would just stop being an addict. And on my diet, I found myself slamming the short ribs. So then I had to say, okay, Adrian, you're going to have to face this and dig a little bit deeper on why you use foods the way you do. Because I can't just eat, because then you cut the short ribs. Well, then it would probably be the steak, the ribeye. I don't know. I always seem to find something I can zone out on, even on the lion diet.
Wow.
Carnivore bars. I can zone out on a carnivore bar every day of the week.
Oh my gosh, that sounds really good right now, actually. Um, short ribs are delicious. I mean, yeah, you can, but they're so I find them to be like they're so rich. I can't eat that much of it. So
Then on the other hand, I still agree. There are foods that are created to hack our brain, all the processed
right,
foods.
exactly.
And I haven't played around with fruit because I don't want my blood sugar to drop. But I
Yeah,
guess
I mean, you have
over,
a. It sounds like you have a big why, a
yeah,
good, very good reason for staying the course, and so that is always. I mean, I think sometimes it's easier if your why is big like that. Like
it
I'm
is.
gonna feel horrible if I go back.
My
Mine
kids
was
get scared. Like
yeah, I
I
imagine
thought about
so.
having a bite of cookie the other day, and my daughter screamed because she was like, "No, you're gonna get sick!" Because they've seen me sick so many times in the past 10 years.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so it's better to just leave it. Better just leave it alone. Mine is I have a few, but one is the main one that
Same.
I really is this I have something called dyshydrotic eczema,
Hmm.
which causes my hands to like blister and peel off, crack open, like and it makes it so that I can barely function. So,
Hmm.
and so yeah, I don't I prefer to just stay away from it.
I am looking into if there's any way to heal this. Like, I've even considered, and I'm not heavily considering this, more considering looking for stories of other people who've had experience and can tell me how it went, of reversing my surgery. But a major surgery can cause inflammation. So I don't know if it's worth it, but I would like to know for people who had their gastric bypass reversed, did the
Mm,
hypoglycemia go away? Did the autoimmune conditions go away? Did the this and that go away? Or 5 down the line, you're still in the same boat? Because
so
honestly, I would love to go to the Apple Festival with my family and have an apple without getting sick once a year. I'm not saying I need an apple all the time, but it'd be
yeah,
nice to go to the Apple Festival and be able to have an apple.
yeah.
A seasonal apple
Yep,
with my
yep. I
family.
mean that would be like how back in the olden days, in ancient times, that would be what they would do. They would eat the apple for sure.
Hmm. Yeah.
So so did your hypoglycemia start after your gastric bypass?
Hmm. I did have signs of it before. I
Okay.
had preeclampsia when I was pregnant with my daughter, and they did the glucose test, and
Mhm.
I got hypoglycemia from the glucose test. And then they passed me and said I was fine, which is like,
That
obviously
is so
something's going on.
strange.
Yeah.
That is
So,
very strange because that's like a lot of sugar. A
yeah.
ton. That is so crazy. Wow. So talk to us a little bit about your revision surgery. Like how did you end up there? Because that was that before or after The Biggest Loser?
So I had gastric bypass after The Biggest Loser. So I go on The Biggest Loser. I'm very successful. I'm the second to last person voted off. I got my makeover. I lasted
Nice.
a really long time. It was super awesome. I was feeling fabulous. I was all tan and blonde, and it was awesome. And then I gained 100 pounds, like immediately. And I went into hiding. And the hiding was fine um, until I got pregnant. And I struggled to get pregnant and I had no milk. And I get preeclampsia and I gained 60 pounds in a matter of 6 weeks. And I top off, I mean, I stopped weighing myself at 330 pounds.
Wow.
So after I gave birth, I ran and restricted Biggest Loser style, except I was working full time. So not working out 10 hours a day, but I'm training for half marathons at 300 pounds. And I'm eating, it should be more like this. No? Okay. And I'm restricting my calories and I'm training, I'm running all this cardio, stressing my body out. I had no idea. And I lose 100 pounds by myself. But then my body starts going back up. My cravings start getting out of control. And I say, oh my gosh, I can't do this again. First of all, I got to my Biggest Loser start weight. I didn't even get into Wonderland. And my body's already fighting me and going back up. And so I had seen some fellow Biggest Losers losing their weight again. And I was like, what are you guys doing? And they said gastric bypass. So I go research it. They were claiming this is the #1 way to lose your weight and keep it off forever. And I'm like, finally, forever. That sounds great. And so that's how I ended up with gastric bypass. It was post-show, post me making more attempts and me just struggling. And so at that point, I assumed there's something broken about my anatomy. I'm a little different place today, but there was nothing wrong with my anatomy. But there was underlying conditions that they didn't look into, like autoimmune conditions, thyroid issues. They just ran those vague thyroid things, hormone issues. And so to me, surgery does not get to the root of the issue. And I'm from Minnesota, so it is root, not root.
Not root.
So after the surgery, that's when I struggle still to lose weight because I had already killed my metabolism, losing the 100 pounds. So I've been struggling ever since the surgery.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, when I started carnivore diet, I was over 200. I was about 202. I had gotten as high as 212 again. And my surgery start weight was like 230. So not really that much less than my surgery. And I did lose inflammation almost immediately, like 10 pounds. Then I started adding Biggest Loser to carnivore. So I started running and doing HIIT classes and restricting 1,200 calories while doing carnivore. And so I did lose some weight, but then it stopped. So then you go to your next tool. And now I'm watching other people and I'm like, oh my gosh, I did this exact same thing. So when that stopped, then I went to the sardine fasting. Then I went to fasting. I went to just water fasting 2 to 3 days a week pretty consistently. So first was running and restricting, then was fasting. And then when that stopped working and I'm still like struggling, going back up, then was the sardine fasting. So all of my weight loss in carnivore has absolutely been because of fasting and restriction. It wasn't, I just started eating meat and boom, cured. Obesity cured. Nope. Every time I stop these extreme things, my body starts going up again.
That's interesting. I feel the same way. I mean, I lost like 20 pounds. I don't know how much I weigh right now because I'm staying off the scale for this month.
Yeah.
But I lost like 20 pounds really fast on carnivore. And then I didn't lose any more weight. And I'm like, wait a minute, but I still have fat on my body. What's going on? Some people are losing all their weight by just switching to carnivore. But
do you think it's mostly men?
I don't know. Maybe. I think women do have a harder time. That's for sure. They do have a harder time than men do. I did a whole topic on this at my last meeting Mondays with the Fierce Felines, talked about, the difference between men and women and, why it's easier for them to lose weight on almost any diet. They can just think about losing weight. They lose weight. But, but I feel the same way. Like of course, I refuse to go ahead and do that like complete restriction. I tried it for a couple of months. I felt like this. I am not happy with these lean days. I'm not happy. I don't feel good about what I'm doing. And the whole thing of being carnivore is being happy, satiated, feeling good about feeling good about it. And so I stopped doing that and I went to more fat. And so that's what I've been doing for the last couple of months, is doing a stick of butter a day. Just trying to see, what does it do if I add more fat? And so we'll see, I'm still in the process of experimenting on myself.
I've seen some people lose weight, but then the minute they stop doing certain things, they struggle and gain. I mean, I feel like I'm not alone here at all, that without significant attempts, challenges, work. This is not a weight loss diet. This is a healing and nourishing diet. This is a heal your body, nourish your body, and be full. So what it does help with on the weight loss is being satiated. It's really hard to snack if you're eating satiating meat.
Agreed. Yeah.
And then it's also helpful to the weight loss only in the way that you're nourishing your body. And so maybe your body isn't starving all the time. So that helps. And then it's just not inflammatory. It's a lower inflammatory diet. It's a low inflammation diet. So in those ways it helps with weight, but it's really not a weight loss diet. In my opinion, except for my dad. He went no grains, no sugar. He lost 60 pounds in like 4 or 5 months. And he looked at me and he said, "This is so easy. Why aren't you and Kathy, my stepmom, doing this?" And I'm like, "Kathy's doing it with you, and she's a type 2 diabetic, and it doesn't work that way. She's trying too."
Yeah. Wow. Interesting. Everybody is different. Everybody is different. And that's why you got to do your own N=1 experiments on your own self and find out what works for you. And so I'm in experimentation mode, and I'm cool with, where my body lands from a size perspective. Matter of fact, things are changing and I'm not even realizing it. Like I put on some smaller pants and they just fit. Well, that was surprising. That was nice.
I've heard some women say in this space that this does keep us, I think, kind of healthy looking. Like my skin is much more healthy. I was looking kind of zombie-like before this. I feel like it's the added things too, though. It's the community, it's the sun, it's the encouragement to sleep. We encourage each other to live a healthy life in all the ways, not just eating the meat. And so those, I think, can show on us, our smiles. I feel like my teeth are better. They used to be so sore and sensitive, and now they're not at all. And, there's just so many. There's so many benefits that
Absolutely.
It didn't give me my weight loss dream, although we do have stories like Kelly's where she just kept going, and throughout time, her body gave her some whooshes.
Yes. But she's been on it for like 15 years or something.
She started
15?
young too.
Yes. And it's like, that really gives me hope though, to just stay the course, because it's not a crash diet. And having done, and I'm like you, I did all the diets, except for I didn't do The Biggest Loser. But I did a lot of different diets, and I could definitely do diets, crash diets. If I want to lose 10 pounds in a month, yes, I can do that. But, but when I think about what I was doing to my body with all that yo-yoing back and forth, it's like, it's not good.
Yes. So people will always criticize The Biggest Loser because it killed our metabolism bad. And some people say that the studies that they've done have shown no increase in metabolism even 6 years down the line.
Oh my.
But I think that could be any crash diet, first of all. Secondly, I still believe in healing.
Yes.
But third, that's what everybody is doing. Eat less, move more.
Right. Well, not everybody, because we're over here not doing that.
I eat great. I can't wait until after this I'm some smoked salmon. I do want to say something that was such a gift from the show, besides getting to be on TV was kind of cool. A gift was before that, I thought less of myself, and I thought this is all that is possible for me is this, because I'm less than, I'm too fat, I'm this, I'm that, I'm this, I'm that. After that, I realized literally anything on earth is possible for any human being. You have no idea what is possible. Anything is possible. Anything in the world. And so because of that gift, and because I quit drinking when I had my kids, and I went to the Alcoholics Anonymous. You're not supposed to say that. I went to a 12-step program.
That's all right. You can say that. You can absolutely say that here.
I went to a 12-step program, and I got to work on not comparing myself to others. What am I grateful for? Am I giving it to God? all these lessons. And because of between the Biggest Loser and my 12-step program, I was able to leave an abusive marriage. And some people never get to have that gift of getting out of that and living a good life because they're stuck, because they think that they deserve it.
Right.
So I feel really grateful for those two things. Well, and God.
That's amazing, because it goes back to the whole topic of feeling unworthy of better, and so that's awesome. I'm really happy about
so I'm really
that.
grateful.
And grateful. Okay. So, I was going to ask how you came across the carnivore diet, but that your dad is amazing.
Dad. My dad. I love him so much.
He's a rock star.
Yeah.
So,
I hope to be half the parent he was.
David body slammed me to the ground 2 times.
Okay, I'll help you after, okay?
Okay.
Look at, we're on YouTube right now, buddy. Can you say hi?
Hi.
Hi. Hi, little buddy. What's your buddy's name?
Porter.
Porter. Hi, Porter. I love the littles. I have 11 grandkids, so I love.
You are so blessed.
I am. I'm blessed and highly favored. Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about what are you eating?
Okay. So yesterday actually, I don't remember. I'm still working on brain health, which is another reason I can't leave here, because there's a lot of healing that needs to go on with my hormones in my brain. So, and there's just no need to add the other things because it's not going to help me heal. So anyway, I can tell you what I ate today. Smoked salmon, eggs, hamburger. I like to buy 80/20. It's so funny. I just interviewed a Biggest Loser. Sorry, Jeff, if you're watching this. And he said, sometimes I spring for the 97.3. And I'm like, I'm trying not to hide it on my face of like, you didn't spring. That's the bad meat.
Right.
I love 80/20 or even 70/30.
If you can find it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I love butter and salt. I'm not a super big seasoned person because I'm so sensitive. I eat lots. I think I already said this. I eat lots of eggs. Recently, I've been a little bit dangerous and I've been adding a couple processed meats like sausage, just for ease and for a little bit of flavor. But for probably a year, I didn't eat that. I eat lots of sardines, fish, and maybe it's because of my inflammation. Fish and my brain. Fish feel amazing to me. I could eat fish for every single meal. I mean, I know sardine fasting sounds ridiculous, but just for the brain boost alone, it's amazing. I might have sardines for dinner.
Yes.
Those are my main foods.
So
I'll eat some steak too.
I got a recipe. I have to share it
Yeah.
because you're talking about sardines. So I don't know if you eat tuna. But I mix sardines and tuna together. This is so delicious. Mixing the sardines and tuna together and then adding melted butter to it. It is so good.
I've been mixing. Grace, can you go get me one of the pink cans? I've been mixing sardines and Trader Joe's smoked salmon. Now, we don't have a Trader Joe's here, but my husband has been doing some projects in Minneapolis, which is like 2.5 hours away. So I've been having him make Trader Joe's hauls for me. If you guys don't know about the salmon, I might add this to my dinner too. So good.
Oh, I haven't seen that. Okay.
It's
We have
really
Trader
good.
Joe's. I'm going to have to go over and get some and try it.
So I mix this with the sardines.
Yeah. So that little sardines and butter and tuna, it tastes like a tuna melt. Remember how those? That's what it tastes
I
like.
loved tuna melts. I can make those for my kids for dinner.
Good. It's so good. All right. So let me just bring up a couple of comments here. Let's see here. So Simpson said, popcorn is my payday for me. Me too, Simpson. I love popcorn. It's like one of my grandkids is over here and just asked for popcorn, and they cook the popcorn and I'm smelling it and it's like, oh my gosh, smells so good. It's almost nightly at that my husband cooks up a big batch for himself, even when he isn't smelling up the house, I still want it. So yeah, popcorn is dangerous. Corn was the thing that really got me and had me off the rails for like 2 years. So I refuse to even try corn in any form because I already
Peanut
know
butter.
it's good. Peanut butter. Oh, I love peanut butter. Oh my gosh, so
The fat
good.
and the carb mixed together is like so good.
Yes, absolutely delicious. I love peanut butter, but haven't had that either. So yeah. Um, so Keto Simple, Dustin says, I feel my best when I close my eating window. Being
Me too.
mindful when I eat. I don't want food early. Don't eat late because I feel crappy when I go to bed. Yeah.
Sometimes that's true for me, and sometimes it feels good to go to bed with a full belly, which is not helping my insulin issues.
Exactly. Yeah, I ate late one time this week. I've been trying to do we're doing a challenge in our felines group, our community group, and that is like an 18-6. And so that means I am ending up eating early and closing my window early. But this week I ate late one day, and I'm doing GKI testing this month. My GKI was definitely impacted by the fact that I ate late at night. It was probably like 10:30 at night that I ate a meal. And so it definitely impacted my ketones and my blood glucose. And then Simpson says, I think women do frequent low-calorie diets pre-carnivore and go into it with messed up metabolism and hormones. Plus, their bodies are built to retain fat as fetus protection. 100%. Absolutely. Yep. Just heard Dr. Kilt saying that last weekend, that we are built. I mean, that's the way our bodies are made. And so, okay, everybody's talking about the sardines and the salmon and yeah, absolutely delicious. So delicious. All right. So we are getting ready to wrap up. But
no, let's do this all night long. This is so fun. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what advice would you have for someone for two things? One, a person who's considering a stomach revision surgery, and or a person who's considering a carnivore diet. So I'll let you go ahead and take those.
I think my answer is going to blow you away, and not in a good way.
Okay.
Guys, I wouldn't do the stomach surgeries. For sure, I would not do gastric bypass. For life, you have nutrient absorption issues. And what's funny is they tell you it'll be fine. Just take your multivitamin and your calcium, which needs to be absorbed through the same exact gut that doesn't absorb those nutrients. So I've had to have infusions. We have to skip the stomach to get those things. And then there's the chronic hypoglycemia, which a lot of people that I've talked to that had gastric bypass have. Not everybody, but it's not uncommon to have that. So I totally understand. If you are like, no, I am content that this is exactly what I need because my eating is out of control and nothing I try works, get the sleeve. Because it doesn't have malabsorption, but it'll help you to not overeat for a time being. So honestly, that's also, there's a window, and then the leptin and the ghrelin like adjust, and you can later on, I think you can pretty much eat a lot. It can also, both surgeries can affect you eating protein because it's difficult to get it through the smaller area. And that's what we need the most of. So if I were considering, and I know it's going to make people cringe, but it's if you've done research on this, it won't make you cringe, is that they now have these peptides that are somewhat natural to our body that you could try instead and have a similar effect, except that they're saying that these peptides actually kind of heal some things underneath. And so they're actually attacking the root of the issue. Now there's some caveats here. I think if you're going to go that route, you have to eat protein and you have to lift weights, or else you're just going to shrivel away. So if you have to go any of those routes, I'd pick the peptide, because if you hate it, you can also get rid of it. You can't get rid of a surgery. So that is something I'd explore. Maybe Dr. Tina Moore, she has some videos on it. Mind Pump has some videos on it. Dr. Amy Horniman has videos on it. Really do your research, because there are side effects. Like, some people say that they're nauseous and they're unable to eat. And I don't know if they're taking too much medicine or what, but in lieu of a surgery, I would go down that route first, because you can take it away. And they're saying it can be healing. But before you go down either of those routes, please try carnivore, because the meat is so satiating, and you get to nourish yourself, and you get community. I have no idea if there's community I never had gastric bypass community. I don't know if there's peptide community. I don't know, but there for sure is the most amazing meat eating keto carnivore community on earth, right? So you get community, we also talk about lifestyle changes, like getting sun, getting sleep, getting rest, low stress. Have you had your hormones checked? Have you had your thyroid checked? Like, we are here to help with all the things and really get to the root of it. So
Absolutely.
that would be, I know the middle piece I just said is probably kind of shocking, but if you are content that you need some assistance, I would go that route versus surgery.
Yes, absolutely. Well, Adrian, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming on to share your story and talk a little bit about, how your life is going and how your carnivore is going. And I'm hoping that you find your new place soon and get out of the moldy situation.
If you guys could all send a prayer, we found a place, we just need to get picked.
Yes.
May God guide us to where he wants us to be.
Absolutely. So with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap up. And so just want to say to you guys, thank you so much for being here for CarnivorousGrama Speaks. We will see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.